okay. We got paper, yes we do. Wide ruled notebooks, pencils, glue. We got crayons every hue. School supplies for your whole crew. Target's got everything you need to ready, set, go back to school.
Blog Talk Radio.
You know, I was just thinking to myself, it's probably Thursday, and I couldn't remember. I actually thought it was Wednesday for a moment. This pretty much tells you how upside down I am. Hi, everybody. I have a big show today. But before we get to the big people, who I apologize in advance because I know you guys are waiting, let me just say a couple really super quick things. I want to remind everybody that everybody wants to listen into the show tomorrow. Why? First of all, because you get to listen to me. I'm kidding. Why the hell would you do that? No, seriously, this is a big one. Every show that I do, obviously, accents what I call a celebrity, and that's a person who either entertains, educates, amuses, inspires, and this one is without a doubt. I can't even begin to describe this excitement because, first of all, last night for the very first time, I was able to speak to this individual, and I was so excited I was like a little schoolgirl. Tomorrow at noon Central Standard Time, we're going to be talking about, this is a new production that's coming out. It's actually a tour. It's starting off in Atlanta, Georgia, and it's making its way around the country. It's called Martin's His Double Life, and that's been penciled by a gentleman by the name of Neil, which is Nial Martin. What's really super exciting is that one of the cast members is actually Robin LaJoya Charles. To those of you that may not know who she is actually the youngest daughter of the legendary Ray Charles. So the fact that I'm getting to this is super cool. The fact that I get to play her music and talk to her, even more super cool. So excited. I cannot even stand it. So, folks, 12 o'clock Central Standard Time tomorrow. Please tune in. One more quick announcement before we get to the interview. This is important only because of the fact that I'm taking the whole day off after this. Yes, that's right. I'm actually taking the day off to go to the state fair. And why? Because I haven't had a day off in forever, and I'm exhausted, and I won't lie to you. I'm mentally drained, and I probably cried myself to sleep last night. We're not doing too great these days, folks. So I need a little break. So I want to remind everybody, if you want to see me and if you want to see great talent, there's a total of 7 people that you should go see today. That's part of the reason I'm going to the fairs, to see and support at least 4 or 5 of these. So, starting at 6 o'clock Central Standard Time, King of Clubs, one of my favorite, never seen him before, Paul G., who runs the band, is a dear friend of mine. They're playing at the Brew City stage, and that's at 6 o'clock. Same thing, 6 o'clock, Cold Sweat and Brew City Horns, led by none other than the Tracy Hanneman, formerly of the Eddie Butts Band, 6 o'clock. Same thing, Leadfoot, 6 o'clock, Sam Goyton, who is, of course, the son of Marcel Goyton, is going to be there at 6 o'clock, and that's at Leadfoot's. 7 o'clock, we have Killer Clowns, which is over at the Sprecher stage. We also have at 7:15 Rebel Grace at the Miller Lite stage. And at Slim's PBR, Liam Ford, of course. Who doesn't love Liam Ford, right? And rounding out, I don't want to forget, the Marcel Goyton himself at Pitches. That is it for sure. So if you want to see me, it's likely I'm doing King of Clubs, I'm doing Marcel, I'm doing Sam for a little while, and likely Liam Ford, because hopefully Jackie May is going to be meeting me there. I do not want to forget do not want to forget to mention that it's Scott's birthday today, Scott Gorell, and please don't come to me if I said your name wrong. I'm not quite sure what I want to say about him, except I want to say to my 61,300 people that are listening in, please wish Scott a happy birthday yourself, obviously. We finally got a chance to meet not so long ago, and it's been a while since I've seen him. Hopefully he'll be smart enough to come down to the fair and meet a bunch of other people, but I didn't want to forget to mention him on a special day, and I think I told you this already, Scott, but have a wonderful birthday if I don't see you. If I do see you, then I'll help you have a wonderful birthday, and we'll dance and do a little drinking and have a little fun. He's not such a bad guy, and he's not too hard on the eyes either, so to you, Scott, I say happy birthday. Okay, so I want to stop babbling and talking because you're probably sick of listening to me, and you get to listen to another author who is totally cool, totally awesome, and I'm very excited. So let's get her on the line. Should I say good morning, or have you not had coffee yet?
I have had my coffee. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you okay, and I've been babbling on and on and on. I don't mean to babble, but I was like, I have all these announcements.
I will jump in with my Robin Williams. Hello!
Oh my God, that was just a little scary. Yeah, I'm not a really big morning person. It's like noon here, so you think I would be awake. I'm actually doing the show from my bedroom. All of you are in my bedroom right now. I thought you might like that. We're all in the bedroom together right now as we speak. Now, I'm going to venture to guess your sister's on the line. Do you want me to patch her in and so she can talk to the both of us? Because I think she's holding right now.
Absolutely.
I can do that.
Certainly.
All right, hang on one second. Is this who I think it is? Of course it is. Of course it is. See what I mean? See, we finally get to be alone, and here she is. Now it's like the three of us. Now we're like all together in the same room. Only you're in Nevada and I'm here.
It's a family affair.
I'm going to cry because you guys are so far away. It's like, I'm really far away. It's like 3.5 hours away, and I didn't get that. They canceled the last event, and I'm really upset about that. And I keep trying to get over there to see the both of you, actually, and it's very frustrating. I'm even trying to be a showgirl for a weekend just so I can come and see you. This is how desperate I'm getting. I'm trying
Vegas
to be a showgirl.
awaits you.
I know, right? And hopefully a husband, because at this rate I ain't getting any close to that one either. Let me just say that much. There is a lot of ground to cover about you because you're fabulous and wonderful and amazing. And there's so much about you that I know now that I didn't know before. Seriously, because I've read interviews that you've done. I've snuck around your back and done some research because that's what I do. That's my job. So we're going to bounce around a little bit. First of all, if I didn't love you so much, I'd call you the B word because I saw you met Wayne Newton in person. So jealous. Oh, my God. You met Wayne Newton.
Awesome. So awesome. So awesome. What a great man, too. He is so humble and so appreciative of his fans. And that's a big thing. That's a big thing. Very big thing.
It's a huge thing.
Yes.
Love.
And it was just at the bank. At the bank.
You literally walked in and there's Wayne Newton standing there. You're joking,
there was
right?
Wayne
It's
Newton.
just like, hey, I'm here.
Nope. I went to make my deposit and there was Wayne Newton. And I said, do you mind if I take a selfie with you? And he said, honey, the day people stop wanting to take a picture with me is the day I start worrying. And I thought, you're an awesome man. Awesome man.
So sweet. Oh, my God. Okay, so now I want to understand this because by nature, if I got this right, and I'm sure your sister can agree or disagree on this one, you seem very quiet, very shy by nature. So the fact that you actually walked up to Wayne Newton kind of shocked the hell out of me. I was like, seriously? Did she actually speak to this person? Because are you not very very shy, very quiet by nature?
No. Initially, yes. As I get to know people, I become more open but just initially, I'm kind of a keep-to-myself kind of person. I'm like a cat in a box sometimes. Sure. I like to keep to myself. But once I know someone, and, of course, the inevitable, have a couple of beers and we're all best friends.
I like that analogy. Let's just have a little alcohol and everything will kind of cool off a little bit. No, and the reason I brought that up, let me just say, because sometimes when you talk to fellow authors, like, for instance, it's those people that are quiet. Like, I'm going to guess that Stephen King is probably 50 of his different characters. You know what I mean? Like, there's a little bit of every character, including the really psycho ones inside of them. So I'm curious to ask you, you're either psycho or are you going to write about really psycho characters? Because typically really quiet people create really strange characters. You know what I'm saying?
Let me defer to my other personality real quick.
Oh, okay. We'll just all wait.
There is always, your characters talk to you. And this is why when I start a book, I don't get too committed to from beginning to end, because about halfway through it, these characters are jumping off of the computer. They're jumping out of the pages and they're screaming, hey, wait a minute. They're real people now. And you have to put yourself into them. These characters that you created, they become real. So, and that's part of the reason why you see a lot of writers that kind of like to keep to themselves. Our mind is always chugging and chugging and chugging. So like when I did the Stalk Exchange, I had written the entire book. And then I'm sitting at the casino with my husband. We're playing some Keno, drinking a beer. And I came up with an entirely different ending to the book because something didn't feel right to it. So I had to literally go back and restructure the entire book to fit the new ending. And that's just what happens. You get halfway through it, you may get to the end of it, and something with this character, you want to change it because they're mad at you. They're like, wait a minute, this is not the way I would want me to end. So they talk to you. Yes. They yell at you in your sleep. They smack you around a little bit and say, wait a minute, no, you made me this cool. Now you're going to turn me into this? No.
Now, I find it interesting. One of the things that I want to ask you about, because oftentimes I always get most excited when I'm interviewing authors because I'm an author myself. But, you know, I've done this.
Yes.
I've done movies and I've done plays, but I'm not as strong on character development as I would like to be. And, of course, I know a lot of my listening audience are creatives as well. So I'd like you to talk about that process a little bit in terms of, so those of us who aren't necessarily as strong in the areas of character development or developing and getting tighter and more thicker plots, let's say, for instance, because sometimes I can get a really good story, but then, you know, growing that plot can be very difficult. So talk about those two concepts, and do they come easily to you, and how do you learn to become a better character developer?
Well, it's never easy because initially when you start writing the story, you have an idea. I don't use people. I don't use people I know. I use characteristics from a whole bunch of people that I've come across. Honestly, when I did my, little write-up background about myself and I sent it to you, I would not have been able to create characters when I was 19, when I wanted to start writing, because I hadn't experienced enough of life to give characters certain personalities. And that's what I needed to, I think that's, instead of kicking myself now, I see that is exactly why I needed to wait to start my writing career. Bartending, when I bartended for a couple of years, I took some time off and decided I'm going to bartend. I'll tell you what, I learned more about human nature and personalities standing behind the bar. You meet everybody from doctors and lawyers to electricians, everybody, every blue collar, any worker in the world, all kinds of people. And the way that I create my characters is when I come up with a story idea, I tend to not really visualize what the character looks like. That kind of comes when I'm writing through their personalities. So I try to focus on personalities. When I did the blog, I wanted just this nasty creature of a woman, and I had no visual perception of what she looked like, but I knew through just certain characteristics of certain women that I've worked for. I just took every negative aspect that really bothered me as a human, and I incorporated those into the character, and eventually she started to earn a face. But with character development, for me, it's hard because I don't visualize them as a person until I've built a personality behind them. So I don't really, per se, use a person when I don't have anybody in mind when I start my characters. I have personalities in mind. So I may take a personality trait from one person and another from another, just things that I've experienced in life, and combine them into this little witch's brew. And from there, the physical appearance starts to come through, and I start to visualize what this character looks like, trying to stay away, of course, from putting their face to anybody I've seen in my life. So it's character development, very, very, very difficult for me because until I've put those traits in place, I don't even see who they are. But once that happens, that's when they start jumping out at the page at me and saying, no, you got to put me here. You got to do this. They start dictating to me who they are and what they would do in a situation.
That's really interesting that you say that, because I'm going to ask your sister this question, actually, because I know that both her and I have read your work before. So I want to see if your sister, so Diane, do you concur with her, meaning that do you think she really struggles with characters? I don't see a problem. I mean, I'm a reader now. Now, remember, of course, I've interviewed you, but obviously, I want to get your sister's take on that, because maybe she could be a little more impartial. Do you know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
Well, I don't really see my sister struggling too much. I mean, she's got a brilliant imagination. She always has.
Right. Exactly. That's what I thought, too. And
it takes time to figure out what she wants to do,
Yes, I do. And I haven't read everything because I assume, Diane, that have you read all of the books, all the material, everything she's done?
Pretty much. I just haven't started the Stalk Exchange yet. I've been kind of busy with other things, but I sat down when I was house sitting I was house sitting after she had finished Clara's Bible, and I had a whole weekend to myself on this beautiful property, so I sat down with my Kindle. I read all 5 books in one day.
That's cool. See, now look at that. You see what I'm talking about? I don't think you have a problem with character development. Just going to throw that out there. And I'm not being biased. I guess asking your sister's kind of biased, but you get the gist of it here. Obviously, your characters are relatable and they're likable, and you put enough passion, I think, into them. That's just a personal opinion, author to author, obviously. I'll give you my impressions when we're off the air because I read what you sent to me, the blog, obviously. And how sweet was she? She sends me this lovely note, and she says to me, I would be honored if you would read this and give me your thoughts. Are you kidding me? The honor's all mine. Anytime any author comes to me and says, will you read something and tell me what you think, I'm like, oh, my God, I'm so in awe. I can't stand it. So thank you. Because that's a much more in-depth conversation.
Thank you.
Okay, so dumb question. So I noticed that in my research that you had said something that you love this line, which is write drunk and edit sober. I find that ironic because let me just tell you right now, the minute that Cindy has 3 glasses of wine, there's no more writing. I can't write. I don't even think I can write after 1 glass of wine, to be honest with you. So I find that funny because I'm trying to picture you at your desk, and I'm thinking you're half drunk while you're doing this, meaning like I'm going to drink when I write it, and then I'm going to edit sober just like that. So tell me why you like that. Have you even done that? Have you tried to?
Well,
some people say under the influence at work.
I don't really write drunk, but I find that I would take chances with a subject that I normally wouldn't take if I'm when I'm relaxed, have a beer, chill out, have a glass of wine, sit down and write, and I'll take a little bit more of a chance. But, boy, when it comes to editing, heck no, because now, and it's hard as an indie author because the phrase the doctor makes his own worst patient, that holds true with anybody that's critiquing or editing their own work. Unfortunately, as an indie author, we don't have the resources available to us. We have some crowdsourcing, some good friends in the field, but editing is really the part where you have to dissect your work and you have to say, I don't like the way this sounds, or you have to tell yourself, this is junk. This is junk. You need to just scrap this whole thing and start over. I have been halfway through a book. In fact, Clara's Bible was going to be something completely different. About halfway through it, I scrapped the whole thing. I didn't delete it. It's on the cutting room floor, and maybe it'll work into another novel. But I literally started from scratch with that all over again. Same with the blog. It was just like, because when I come out of the writing, you're in a different world when you're writing. You're in that imaginative world. You are in a bubble. But when you start to critique your own work and you start to really dissect it, that's when you have to become this other character. You have to say, I'm now a customer. I'm now going to read the book rather than be the author who's proud of what she created. Now I've got to come and be my own critic. And that's hard. That's hard, editing. So edit sober, absolutely. Not just sober as far as drinking, but sober as far as thoughts and who you are. You are a different person. You are now the customer. You are now the person that's going to be picking up that book and reading it. Would I be happy as a reader if I purchased this book? Would I be happy with it? And that's where I really have to pick apart what I'm doing as a writer versus what I'm doing as building a product that somebody's going to purchase. I want them to have a good, solid product.
And that's a sign, obviously, of an individual who obviously cares not only about the quality of her own work, but, of course, if other people are impressed or if other people are amused or entertained. That's one quality that I revere a great deal about fellow authors, is the fact that they take such pride in their work and that they actually care what their audience thinks, because that's a big deal. And I myself recently, it's funny you mentioned the editing thing. I was just working on this project. I've almost become too anal at editing. Do you know what I mean? Almost like I feel the need to have to be perfect all the time. It's driving me insane. I think I'm driving myself insane. You know what I mean? Like you're saying, you're your own worst critic, which I think oftentimes can be the case. The other thing I wanted to address with you, because I've been doing this a long time, obviously. I've been writing for the last 20 years or so. And so one of the things that I have found that I'm not necessarily impressed with is I know that it's important and exciting to some extent that there's so many new platforms for publishing out there. However, yet by the same token, I almost feel like it's becoming inundated to where anybody is now considered an author and can publish something. Do you follow me? I guess I'm curious of your take on that.
I do, and I had really struggled with what platforms I wanted to use, and I found that there are so many independent, platforms out there. The one that works for me is Amazon. And I've got formatting is a huge issue. That's another part of the the independent writer's struggle, is that we have to make sure this looks aesthetic to the eyes. It's got to be pleasing to read. We can't just throw stuff out there, unjustified paragraphs, indents. It has to look good on, the Kindle reader. If you're doing your paperback, it needs to look good. That is the platform I chose because that's the one that I learned to master. The one thing I do like, and I'm not sure if the other platforms do it, the Nook and Kobo and the other ones, but I know that you have to submit your manuscript for review before they'll put it out there. So if it doesn't fall within certain terms or guidelines, if it looks too terrible, if it finds a lot of editing issues, they will let you know. And so it's kind of like, they don't want to sell a bad product either. So I've chosen to remain independent with one self-publishing platform because that's what I'm good at doing. And if it evolves to more, that's great. But I have to stay on the streamline here. I know I've got my system down. When I've finished my book and I copyright my book, then I can upload the manuscript, and then I can do some extra work on it before it's actually released, so that not only, because if I throw this on several platforms trying to get the sales, then I could be damaging my own work too. And I don't want to have a bad reputation for putting out a substandard product. Now, there are some not so great. To me, anybody who takes the time and the heart and soul to put anything out there, to me, is a hero. And because it's a scary thing. I know. And I honestly, I stick with one platform because that's exactly what I'm good at. As far as, some stuff can flow through the works. But that's, again, that's going to hurt the author. If you're putting out a product just to slap it out there and say, I did this, I think that's really going to hurt an author. So really, an author that really wants to get their product out there and be proud of it, you've got to do it right. And the ones, if you choose not to do that, you're going to have a substandard product out there, and I don't think it's going to sell. If it's hard to read, if it's not formatted correctly, it may be the greatest story in the world, but there are other things that go along with getting the product out there. And that's the bottom line. In the end, we're so proud of what we do, but it's still a product, and somebody's purchasing that product, and it's very important to make sure it's a good product. And there's nothing in the world that's perfect. But there's a lot of, I know a lot of independent authors, very well respect them. And, but that's I'll just use the one platform because that's what I'm comfortable with. Have you had, just out of curiosity, experiences with other platforms or other things that you've tried where, somebody's listening in there thinking, I've been using this and it works and that works. Have you come across anything, or even in conversation from other authors where they're saying, this just isn't a really great, viable platform? And the only reason I bring that up isn't necessarily to be negative, but it's, authors looking out for authors. One of the things that I have found, like I deal with musicians and actors and producers and directors, sometimes there can be this sense of competition, or this sense of, just the whole, we're not team effort. You know what I mean? Like, I'm here for you, you're here for me, that sort of good stuff. And with my authors, I don't see that as much necessarily. I think that we're all kind of in the same pool, kind of swimming towards the same goal, if you will. So I try to let people know if there's things out there that are too complex, too pricey, not very successful. Have you come across any of those platforms or things that people should be somewhat leery of? I have, and I don't want to really name the platforms only because, it's just but to be honest, I would say when I published my first book, I was so excited. I put it out on one platform, and then I tried the multiple platforms, and I found that I am not I am not going to spend weeks on end reformatting my work to fit on multiple platforms, and that's taken away from my writing time. What works for me isn't necessarily going to work for another author, so I wouldn't want to bash another platform. But the only way that I could respond to that and be fair to the platforms and every author out there, independent authors, that is find the platform that you master, that you are great at, and use that platform. And then if you have, you have the ability or the resources to expand platforms, I just don't want a bad product out on one platform when I've got a good one on the other. So it's just, for me, I have to stick with one platform. I like to stay exclusive. And I believe that opens up my time to get my good product out while I can start working on new writing. And I don't want to take away from my writing time.
No, I don't blame you, definitely. I don't think people realize really how crucial or essential it is to designate. I was just complaining about this. I write for everyone else now, and sure, it's nice to get a paycheck, and sure, it's nice, to be hired for things, but sometimes when you don't get me time with yourself, meaning me time to write for me, not necessarily everybody else, I find that, gets a little frustrating. So I want to ask you about that. Do you have a significant or sufficient amount of me time where you just write something where nobody's going to see it or whatever have you, or whatever it is that you want to write for you? Are you finding that you make the time or have enough time now to do that?
I absolutely make the time. That is something that it is. It's almost like I'm compelled to do it. If I don't do it, I don't feel right. Because now, I started this 3 years ago. I woke up and I said, you know what? It's time. I'm going to write a book. And I make time. I feel guilty if I'm not writing at least a couple times a week. And sometimes if I go out of town and I don't get that time in that week, it's almost like it builds up, and then I'm spewing onto the paper when I get back. I can crank out 3,000 to 5,000 words in a weekend. Not that they're the best. I still have to go through and decipher what I did, but I absolutely have to make time to do that because, again, it's all about this is what I want to do. I'm not an editor. I'm not a formatter. Those are the things that kind of come on the sidelines, but for me, the writing is what's important. I have to continue and keep it going, and I've got so many stories that I start. I set them aside. Once I commit to one, though, I kind of go full force on it, and until it's done, and then I go to the next. So, but absolutely, if that's a passion, I have to make the time to do it, and it's not a chore to make the time to do it. It's kind of like you come home from work, you want to relax a little bit, sit in front of the TV. That's my television. It's mental TV for me.
Did you hear that, folks? Now you have two authors saying you must make the time for some self-work, self-care, and, of course, self-writing, obviously. And I should listen to my own advice. In fact, I'm going to. Absolutely. That's what this little Facebook hiatus thing is for right now, is just to focus on Cindy a little bit more and some of the other things here. Like, for instance, thank you so much for bumping the interview time up, because I know we're going to do it later today. But I was like, you know what, I'm taking the opportunity to do this special event. I'm going there later today, and thank God you were able to change your schedule. So thank you.
No problem. No problem, honey.
I want to switch over a bit here, because I know back in the day, you mentioned, of course, you've done bartending, but you also used to be a skip tracer and a bill collector. So people used to not like you, I'm going to guess.
Well,
because if you called me, I would have been
not. I've never been one to think that you're going to get something from being a bulky, mean person. And I did actually very well in collections because it's about working with people. And yeah, and I did that for 10 years. I actually did some legal collections. It's not about people don't not pay their bills because they don't want to pay their bills. There's always a circumstance, and it's kind of about working through those circumstances to make it beneficial on both ends. So I did very well with collections, and again, it's about working with people, and then I went into computer programming, and it's programming to me it's a different language. It's writing in a different language, and you start to see these little algorithms take place, and I use computer programming in my books all the time. I use it like an algorithm. How do I want this? It's like a formula that I need to follow to get from point A to the end. And so everything I've done in life kind of facilitates what I do in my writing. And it's from meeting people, their personalities, their traits, experiences that I've had in my life. How would I handle something? How would a mean character handle something? It's all there. It's all there for me. It's just I have to put it in the right algorithm there to turn it into a great book.
Okay. And have you found that, let's go back a little bit. Have you ever taken any of the experiences that you did in the professional world that weren't writing relative and turned them into something that was relative to your writing?
At this point, not really, other than I think the trilogy I used a lot of, there was some technical, I don't know if you've read the trilogy. It's basically good versus evil, and we've got exorcisms occurring by extracting the demon from the character and putting them in a computer system. So I used a lot of that technical experience to kind of develop the character that is the exorcist who is literally exorcising these demons by trapping them in a computer. So those are the kind of the technical experiences, not so much personal though. I really haven't taken a personal experience and fused it into a book. My books are so far out fiction, they have nothing. I'm kind of a boring person. So my characters have these great lives. So it kind of helps me because it's a matter of, well, I'm a boring person, so let me make something up. Let me be the daydreamer here and make this person's life exciting, and let me make them a not-so-boring person.
Oh, my goodness.
So maybe to the opposite effect.
I was just going to say, now I have to turn it back over to your sister again and ask, okay, is she really this drab and boring as she makes herself out to be? Because I totally am not picturing that. Seriously, I'm not.
Yeah, she's not. She's not boring at all. She's actually fun to hang out with.
Told you. And she's just not saying that because she's your sister. Well, maybe just a little bit. But still, see, first of all, have you read your own writing? Because if you've read your own writing, you already know that you're not that boring. Duh. The writing is a representation of you. That's just my guess. Keep in mind we haven't met one another yet. But I just find it so interesting when a writer says that they're drab or boring or whatever, and I'm like, no.
Yeah, but the tail of the fish, it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. Every time you catch the fish and tell the story, the fish is bigger and bigger until it's a shark, and that's so I'm the fish. And the end result of a book is the shark. It's the big mean shark with the cute little teeth that are going to tear into you. So, yeah.
That's cool. Now, we differ a little bit on this opinion because I think you've said this before because we've talked about this, and I've said this on other shows with other authors. I've said and given them leniency and said, you know what, it's okay if you spend a decent amount of time writing something. You end up not liking it and scrapping it, whereas you would probably say to them, pick that stuff up off the floor because you could make magic out of something out of that. So I think it's okay to talk about that. So you're saying no matter what, even if you think it's garbage, a person should still keep it and utilize it in some fashion. Which is interesting.
Absolutely, yeah. Every time I work on a manuscript or every day that I go in, I copy it as a new file. So I have an archive all the way back for every single book I've done. I've got hundreds upon hundreds of versions because sometimes I do want to refer back to an older version of, say, my first book that I didn't use in the end result. But there are some things in there that I wrote that I need to go back and refer to because my mind was in a different place there. The blog and Clara's Bible, I started both of those, got significantly good way through them, but I scrapped them and started from scratch. But I still have those original manuscripts that I can always go back to because there was good ideas in there, good ideas that didn't exactly fit into, let's say, the blog. The idea I had originally was completely different from the end result of the book, but there were ideas in that starting version that I am definitely going to fuse into a new novel. It just didn't flow the way I wanted it to, but there was something there. There was something when I was in that state of mind writing that I can definitely use to construct an entirely new story. So, I'm a definite advocate of there's no such thing as garbage writing. No such thing. Everything has its purpose. May not be for that particular book, but it's something I may look at a year, 2 years down the road and say, I remember I was thinking that, and I can go back and I can look at my old archives. I've got discs full of all my manuscripts, and every time I come in and continue writing on one particular one, like I said, I save off the old version, start with the new one, and redate it. So
I like
absolutely.
that. Yeah, maybe I'll have to try that because I've done that.
Yeah.
I've literally taken stuff, thrown it across the room along with a pen or a pencil and been like, we're done here. I'm not doing this. I'm not doing this. This is crap. I should get rid of it and that sort of stuff. Now you've got me convinced that I'm going to have to keep my crap because, writers are so organized or anything because it kills me. People will come over and I'm thinking that they're thinking. I don't know if you have a desk or an office like this, but I have paper everywhere, and it's the start of one thing over here, and it's the start of another thing, and then there's like 5 other articles over here. I'm a mess. I'm a hot mess, but I'm like, you know what? I just say I'm an author. I'm like, I am an author, so I'm allowed to be a hot mess, but you're probably not a hot mess. I'm picturing you completely organized.
No, I am. Nope. Nope, not at all. I've got papers everywhere. I've got maps on the story I'm working on now. I have maps taped up to the wall. I've got notes everywhere. I've got a stack of papers. Sometimes I'll just sit out. I'm a computer person, so I think it comes from the horror of the old days of having a typewriter and you type a page and you don't like it, so you got to throw the page out and you got to start a new page. Now I can just go into my Word, my word processor and fix it. But I will sit outside for hours on end scribbling out. I've got, like, for the new book, I've got like a stack of papers, all that I have got three different ways that the story's going to go. And so now I've got to kind of let it write itself a little bit, just get a little bit farther into, I get to that point, and then I can decide which path are they going to take, what's going to happen next. But I'll do that. I'll just brainstorm on paper, and I'll write down like little checklist of things, a timeline. And no, it's messy. It's a messy job.
Oh, yes, it is. But I enjoy all that disorganization, and I wouldn't have it any other way, obviously. I want to switch gears again because we're big on this. One of the things I like to talk about are different forms of inspiration for an individual, and I know a couple of yours. So first of all, I want you to talk and tell our audience about, I was very moved by your description in the interview that you did, speaking about your friend Jen. So if you would, talk about the significance she plays in your life in terms of influence and motivation.
Well, Jen had taken care of her husband who was sick with cancer for years, and this is a wonderful woman who the doctors had told her that Al was not going to get better, and they told her, if you're going to leave him, now's the time, and she said, hell no. And she took care of him until his last days. And Jen and I had actually, when we met, that was before I started writing, and she was interested in doing a blog. So I said to Jen, let me do an anniversary type of video. And so we became really good friends. I told her I'd help her out in any way possible. So she is in the process of getting together her stuff for her blog about caretaking. And this is about the struggle, the reward of being there for your spouse through sickness and in health. She's a huge inspiration, and she is still working on her stuff. Eventually, she will have her blog out, and she will be talking about. She'll be helping people, and what she does is so much more important. I make stuff up and write fiction. What she does is inspiring because she has been through it, and she can help so many people get through the struggle of dealing with a sick spouse or a sick child, and the struggles that go along with it. It's a huge inspiration.
Very, very cool. Second person I wanted to mention was, of course, I could tell by your tone and the sorts of things that have been said, your father. Either one of you could speak or both of you could speak on this because I didn't have the good fortune to be able to meet him. So tell me the imprint that he's left on you.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, it's all an imprint. Both him and my mother, always supportive. Everything I've learned in life, how to take care of myself, how to work on cars, which I used in Clara's Bible. He was very much about us being strong women and independent, and you couldn't drive a car until you drove a stick shift, and you couldn't drive a car until you knew how to change the tire. He just a wonderful, wonderful man, and he was going to make sure nobody messed with his daughters. And you know, I remember the first time I got into a fight in school. Him and my mom came down, and they understood that I didn't take the first punch. I was defending myself, and both of them came down and they supported us 100%. You take care of yourself, and that's we 5 kids, all very different, but they made sure that we all could manage through life without being the weak person and to do what we want to do. And they were always very proud of everything we've done. Now I'm going to get weepy, Diane. You're on, Diane. You're on.
Go for it.
My dad was one of a kind. Right or wrong, thick and thin, him and our mom always had our back, no matter what. And he taught us a lot of diplomacy. He taught us how to handle things in a very quiet manner. He taught us how to defend ourselves, how to take care of ourselves. I mean, my sister and I knew how to cook by the time we were like 10. All of us did. You know, I mean,
that's cool.
The only thing my dad, and even when it came to the horses, our parents were born in Philadelphia. They were raised city kids. And when we had horses, my mom and dad knew nothing about them. But my dad tried to learn. I mean, we would go horseback riding in San Jose almost every weekend.
Wow.
And I don't know how many times I almost put him in a panic. But they did. They did, right? Everything.
And on a side note, my parents are the original Charles and Diana.
Oh yeah, I was going to mention that because I saw that in the write-up. I was like, oh, my God, how funny is that? Only they're from Philly. They're not from, obviously, Las Vegas or California. I get that. But you actually are originally a derivative of California, right? That's where you started out in California, and then you ended up in Las Vegas.
My other sister, Donna, and I were born in California. The other 3 children, Diana, Chuck, and Chris, were born in Philadelphia. So my parents moved around a lot, and we were it doesn't matter where I was born. It was where I ended up in life, which is Vegas, and I can't ask for a better place to be. But yeah, my folks moved around a lot when we were growing up.
Oh God, yeah.
So I'm a Cali girl. Diana's a Philly girl.
Yeah, but my heart.
But now we're all Vegas kids.
That's awesome. Now, we can't forget the obvious, which is, of course, I'm going to venture to guess that your brother, Chuck, inspirational. Obviously, I realize that you've lost your brother, both of you, and I'm sorry for that, but I don't wish to do the interview without speaking about him because I'm certain that there are memories or moments that have led you to becoming the person you are because of him in some way. Either of you, really.
Chuck had suffered an accident that followed him for many years to come. And it's an accident that he should not have survived. And somehow through humor and through just such a good nature, Chuck lasted with us for a very long time. And when he passed, I'll never forget the night that he passed. I got the call. There was a shooting star over the hospital, and it was right after Christmas. He was not going to pass on Christmas night. But Chuck was such a funny, good-loving. We called him. There's no other thing to call him but Good Time Charlie. There was not one person that disliked him. Just a wonderful, free-spirited, completely free-spirited. But I'll tell you what, this boy could walk in. You could have a car problem. And Chuck, it didn't matter what time of day or night it was, And he could walk into any auto place, anywhere in the United States, and they knew him. Chuck, how you doing?
Oh, my God.
He just
really
cultivated such good relationships with everybody. Everybody loved him. And, anytime you needed something, but that's, with all the kids, we're all like that. Chuck had such a great skill, but he was a character, too. When we were growing up in San Francisco, we all had newspaper routes. So we were all working like 11, 12 years old. We used to have all these newspaper routes around the city, and Chuck used to ride on the truck. But he's a joker, too, because we moved to Half Moon Bay. Chuck was a famous BA'er. One day he ends up at the police station because he's swinging his BA out the back of the San Francisco Examiner news truck. He's just a kid, right? Then we moved to Half Moon Bay, and Chuck was the infamous, he'd do a half BA over the Half Moon Bay sign. So Chuck was also just such a joker and a character. He could make anyone laugh.
Oh yeah, he was so much fun. He could even walk you through a tune-up over the phone.
Oh my God, really?
He was amazing. I mean, I have memories with him that I'll treasure for the rest of my life. He taught me how to four-wheel. He taught me how to jump out of cars. He taught me all kinds of stuff.
He sounded absolutely lovely. And now he and your dad are together, obviously. So that's kind of, in some ways, comforting, I imagine, to have angels looking over that are so extraordinary. So thank you for sharing that. I appreciate that. I also want to talk about some of the stuff that I think is just plain weird about you. Sorry, much love, but this is kind of odd. First of all, she took her phone and she put an eye on it. And she's like, hey, I have an iPhone now. She uses a flip phone. I looked at that, and my kids were laughing. They're like, does she really use that? I'm like, I'm thinking she does. Really?
Well,
a flip phone?
It actually retired itself this year because my husband insisted you are done with the flip phone. He's traveling out of the state. He's in the Bay Area right now, working out there. So when we talk on the phone and I've got my little flip phone, we can't see each other. So he when he came to town, he said, no, we're getting you a smartphone. So now I have an official smartphone. So
do you feel
I have
smarter now?
Graduated. Well, sort of. I always used my tablet. I had a tablet, but I was just, I don't know, just there's some things about me that are just old-fashioned, and a phone is to open up, chit-chat, and close it up, and you're done.
I understand.
But, I mean, in all honesty, I do like having a smartphone, and I can video chat with my husband every night, and we get to see each other.
That's cool.
So, but I have graduated. But, boy, I was ridiculed for years over my little flip phone. So, yes, I did the little eye just to prove that I can be hip like everyone else, and I had an iPhone for several years.
Funny. Okay, so now I got to ask this because, people who look at my write-ups tend to look at, I'll put up your website like I did. I put up your Facebook page and your website, and then they go check you out. And now you probably just wreck somebody's day because they're listening and probably thinking, hey, I wonder if that chick's single. So you just wrecked it. So we should talk about David since you brought up your husband. So tell us about David a little bit and tell us if he has any form of creativity running in his bones because I've said that most creatives tend to end up with a creative.
He is so funny. He does impressions of people, and he's an electrician, but he will do an impression, and he will have everybody in stitches. He can do Rodney Dangerfield, and he goes through his whole line of impressions, and he literally should have been in Hollywood. He's so funny. He gets a mix between, he looks like either Matt Damon or Marky Mark, what's his name, Mark Wahlberg. He should have been in Hollywood because he is so funny. And he's a good guy. It's really hard to find a good man. That I won't say that it's hard to find him. I am so blessed with him because he's faithful. He's honest. He's very supportive. I don't know how many women could look at their husband and say, it was just literally one day 3 years ago, he said, what are you going to do today? I said, I'm going to write a book. And he goes, good. and he supported me all the way through it. I would spend hours up in my office just writing and not see him for hours on end. No ridicule whatsoever. No, I think I was worried that it would be silly. It would be like, he might look at me and say, you're never going to be able to finish it. You're never going to do it's never going to do this. He never did that. He always supported me 100%, and I'm always going to be ever so grateful to have that support from him and my family. So he's a wonderful man, very charismatic. He's just
did you hear that, folks?
Everybody
so no hitting on the author, no sending her little love notes, all that good jazz and stuff. Because we do try to do love connections on the show. We encourage love connections for the host. Or not. I'm not really sure where we stand on that, but God knows. Kudos to you on that, and that does make me happy. Oftentimes people come on the show and they talk about very long-lasting relationships, and one of the things that I've always stressed to people is I think the more support you have in the background, no matter where you get it from or who you get it from, makes you a bigger power player is what I call it, meaning a power player being successful with their passion and purpose in life. And so clearly you've become a very powerful player, and I'm sure. So thanks, David, and your brother, and your father, and your sister, and the whole 9 yards. We got to talk about Bella. I'm assuming Bella's around the house somewhere. Oh, my God. You still have the dog, yeah? Yeah?
The dog, the dog. It's my other sister's dog, and she has kind of made her rounds with everybody. So she stays a year here. But now with my husband traveling, I'm staying at my mom's house till my husband comes back, and so we've got Bella here. We've got my sister has another little dog, and then we have a turtle. And I love Franklin the turtle. He's a desert tortoise, and he actually inspired me. I'm actually putting him in the novel I'm working on now, which is a family adventure. So we have a turtle.
Seriously?
And seriously. So as though I don't incorporate people in my books, I'll take the animal world any day of the week. And Franklin has earned his spot in one of my books. He's just the coolest creature.
That is so cool. I think that is absolutely so cool. And the other thing is, back to the weirdness, I need you to explain this to me. I ask this every time a guest comes on, and I know they like it because I don't get it. And I know that Di likes this, and I don't think she's ever explained it to me either. 2 things you like, I don't get it. Game of Thrones is one, Walking Dead is another. I tried to watch Walking Dead. I see heads rolling. I see people dying. I don't understand this fad, craze. I don't even know. Somebody asked me to do a Walking Dead person. And I'm like, if you actually ask me a lot, then okay. You know what I mean? But I'm like, what is up with you people in these dead zombie things, whatever? I don't get it. I don't get it. Seriously.
I would not have watched The Walking Dead, but my husband, David was like, Denise, you just got to watch one episode. And after the first episode, I was hook, line, and sinker because it's not about zombies. It's about human relations in the event of an apocalyptic experience. There is today when I look at politics and I see the division to me, with politics, there's one line. It's government and it's people. And now we're fighting amongst each other. I don't care who you voted for. I don't care what your political convictions are. We're still people. And in the event something like that happens, we have only each other because government can't take care of you in that instance. So we have only each other to take care of. So that's why I like The Walking Dead, because it shows you that in the event of it's not about zombies, it's not about the heads rolling, it's not about it's about how are these groups of people going to band together to survive an experience like that. And it's the thing I love about the show, and honestly I haven't watched the last 2 seasons. Because I go away from TV for long periods of time. But the thing I love about the show is that people have to bond together. They have to get through a world without any support from that we're used to. There's no income. We have to find our own food. We have to band together. We're going to have our spats in between our groups, but we still have to find a way to survive through it and stay humanized instead of becoming animals. And that's what I love about the show. It's about human interaction in the worst of circumstances. And Game of Thrones, same. To me, that's different. That's a saga tale. And I love I love the world that was created there, and I love the characters. It is. It's always kept me on edge. So, and again, I'm about 2 seasons behind on that as well. Those are, I don't watch a whole lot of television, but when a show strikes me like that, I will watch.
Interesting. Now, Di, okay, flip side over to you, because I don't know if you do Game of Thrones, but I know you do Walking Dead. So do you concur with your sister, or are you just watching it because of the gore factor, et cetera? I'm just curious. I just don't get it.
What's that? You're talking to Diane. Yeah, go.
Yeah. Did you hear me, Di? I'm curious. Tell me your Walking Dead deal. I mean, is this all about, do you concur with your sister's belief and that's why you watch it, or are you just watching it because it's like total creepy horror people head cutting off thing? Ew.
It's both.
Gross.
Growing
I don't get it.
When we were living in Saratoga, my mom and I used to watch creature features every weekend. And I got hooked on the zombie stuff when I got to see George Romero's original version of Night of the Living Dead.
Mm-hmm.
And I just fell in love with the zombie thing. But it is Walking Dead is totally. But even then, back then, the original, it was people helping each other out, taking care of each other, people being scared. It was really cool. The Game of Thrones, I'm totally hooked. I sit there. I got HBO to go, so I can see it when it's 6 o'clock versus 9 o'clock.
That's so cool. And then do you guys watch that spinoff? Because there's a spinoff to Walking Dead or something, right? Now, isn't there this new show or something?
Yeah, Fear the Walking Dead. I watched the first season and I was bored stiff.
Really? Because the Dayton Callie's in that one, so I was kind of excited. I was like, "Ooh, this is going to be fun." You know what I mean?
For me, it was boring.
Not. Okay.
There wasn't enough action.
Inquiring minds wanted to know, so thank you. And the other thing, the weirdness that I want to ask you about is I read this on your Facebook page, actually, that your hero, you literally called Ruth Gordon your hero, and that made me giggle out loud because I'm I know who Ruth Gordon is. So what up with that, okay? Because Ruth Gordon, when people talk about, oh, yeah, it's my hero, I'm kind of not thinking Ruth Gordon. Kind of not. Really didn't think about it at all.
She's my hero because she never... She never let her age dictate to her. She in every which way but loose. She was a funny woman. Didn't have any problem saying yelling at the baboon, and it just never let age dictate how she's supposed to be. And Betty White the same way. I've got so many elderly women that are still in the business and they're still on the screen. They don't allow what age is supposed to be to get to them, and so creative and so funny. So yes, absolutely my hero, a woman that probably struggled to make her way into the business, and at that age still just doing what she does best, and that's being Ruth Gordon. Yes, that's absolutely so cool. My hero. Absolutely.
That is. That's super, super, super cool. I like that. Well, thanks for explaining that, because it just came across really weird to me. I was like, okay, fine. But that's okay. I understand. Now we want to talk about some of the things clearly, just so you folks know, obviously. I have been doing this a little longer than you have, meaning I started when I was 14, 15 years old, and I know that you started, obviously, a little later in life, clearly. But what I found interesting was you made the statement, though, even though you've started later, and we want to talk about this first off, because when I interview actors that are an older age, sometimes they'll say, you don't want to start off at an older age, but sometimes it's okay to do that. So I want you to talk to your audience a bit about if somebody's at home right now in their late 30s, beginning 40s, even later than that, and saying to themselves, I'm too old, or, I'm not experienced enough, or I'm just not eclectic enough, what would you say to them if they had a burning idea or a passion for this, but they're thinking that age is going to be an adversity for them?
Well, I would say age isn't the adversity, it's fear of failure. That's the adversity, which is what held me back for so many years. Now, of course, there are certain things you can't do at an older age. I can't go play a baseball game without feeling like I just got run over by a truck. I'm almost 50, so that's something where age is going to affect my decision. But if you have a burning idea, first of all, why? If you're going to write because you have a passion to write, you don't care if it's going to sell. And I didn't start my first book to sell a book, to become an author. I did it because it was a passion. And honestly, it was I was just going to do the one. It was like a bucket list item. I want to write a book. And when I found the platform that I published on to be, to work for me, and it rolled into a trilogy, I continued to write. And 3 years into it, book sales they don't come easily. Advertising doesn't come easily. There's a lot of scams out there. But, I've been approached by people to purchase reviews because I don't have a lot of reviews on my books. But I want authentic reviews. I would rather have less real reviews and then having to purchase. And people do that. But that's not the point. Going back to, if you have a passion to put something on paper, if you have a passion to write a song and get out there and perform it, you're not too old. Age isn't the barrier. If it's truly a passion, then you do it anyway. You do it, and who cares what everybody around you thinks? And exactly. I always find that natural progression of something versus a forced progression is I don't want to taint my work. I don't want to taint it by going with these we get you the #1 bestseller if you invest this much money. No thanks. No thanks. I would rather have less because now I have more. It's like the old expression, don't shit where you eat, and that's the way I would see it just ruining what I've worked so hard to do. But age, never a factor. I kind of kick myself for not really pushing myself to do it because it's always been a passion. To do it sooner, I could have been farther. But then again, maybe I didn't live enough. Maybe I didn't have the mindset to do it, and now I do. And now I'm very cautious. I'm very cautious that I'm not using anything. I'm using just my imagination, and that I'm doing it for the passion, not for book sales. Of course, yes, please. Reviews are very important, and I give away books a lot. I will frequently put out 1 or 2 of my books on Kindle for free for the weekend and download it. I want honest reviews. I want to know, do people like this? But no, never too old. Age is never a factor. And again, unless you're doing something physically challenging. But fear of failure is huge because honestly, I didn't even tell my family I wrote a book for a year until a year after I published it because it's that fear of failure, and it's the fear of somebody looking at your work and going, "Oh, that's kind of okay." We all have that. It's a primal instinct we have that we don't want to put ourselves out there. But yeah, no, it's never age. It's never age that has anything to do with it. So right away, I respect anybody who does, puts their heart and soul out there. And steps out on that limb. You've got to.
Oh, I agree with you. Plus, I want to make a note of something that you just said, which is to those that are listening, because I do book review, I do film review, and I do all sorts of things. And I've always been one to say, because I take great offense when people come to me and they want me to fudge a review for some reason. And I'm like, this is exactly why when I built my film festival, I insisted that I not be the person to judge it solely. Because what good does it do if your best friend says to you, hey, I love your book? They're your best friend. You know what I mean? So I always want to be unbiased, et cetera. So to those that are listening, and it's crucially important that you come across critics or individuals who are not going to tell you what you want to hear. They're going to tell you what you need to hear. That's one quality of your sister possesses that I love very much about her. She's very blunt, very forthcoming. This is the way it is. No sugarcoating anything. So, kids, it's important. If you're going to get into this field or any field really relative to the creative arts, just know now your best friends are your best friends for a reason because they are not going to blow smoke up your backside. It's just that simple.
Exactly.
Obviously, of course, the other thing we want to talk about is I know that you've said before it's easier for you to begin the book and even harder to finish the book. And now I'm curious, that comes twofold question here. First of all, what tools have you found to make it easier for you to complete a project? And then second of all, how do you deal with the proverbial, well, I don't even know if you get writer's block, because I'm here to tell you I've thrown things across the room and it's not pretty when I can't put things together. So I'm curious about that.
starting the book, I say, is easy because you already have an idea. I already go into it with an idea of beginning to end. Sometimes, well, I can't say that. Sometimes I don't know the ending. Getting into the middle of the book, the meat, I start to get a little distracted from maybe the characters or where they're going. So it's really getting to the end of the book. It's kind of like a path. Sometimes, and I don't call it writer's block. I don't believe in the term writer's block because you're never blocked.
Really?
It's just that you can't. I don't believe in that. I have never experienced. I've experienced periods of time, and that was when I started the trilogy. When I started the second book, I had to walk away and not write anything for months on end. But my mind is chugging through all of these different. I didn't know where to go with it because I'd completed the first book, and I got to the second book, and it started out really great, and then I kind of got stuck. I'm like, I don't know where to go with this. And I don't think of that as a block. I think of it as I haven't completed the thought of the entire story in my head yet. And I went months, and I'd have dreams, and I'd go through all these scenarios in my head, and I was mapping out different scenarios, but I wasn't writing. But when I did come back to it, and I kind of had allowed that time, it's kind of like let the wheels in your head turn, because sometimes we're so inundated with having to write, we feel this need that we have to do something every single day. That's what creates that block between brain and paper, is we just don't know where we want to go with it. So I have literally walked away from stuff for months on end, and until I've kind of formulated that path that I want the characters to go on, and really what is the ultimate place that I have to land them in when I complete this entire series. And that getting to that through time away from that sometimes it becomes a job, and when it becomes a job, that's when I have to step away, because now I feel like it's something I have to do versus my passion. So again, not really a block, but getting from beginning to end, sometimes it takes getting away, getting your brain, even if it's a day or a couple of months, just step away from it. Let the wheels in your head turn, because that's where the whole story began. And you can't do it if you're just slapping, I found myself at times just slapping words down on paper that weren't going anywhere. And I had to step away and let your brain do what it does best. And then when you come back to it, or when I came back to it, I was empowered again. I felt like I was ready to burst. And when I started writing, when I picked up the second book where I left off, I was able to flow, and it flowed great. And then I'd hit another point where I just needed to slow down and step away and let my brain, let the wheels start turning again. So it's different for everybody. But I think one of the questions on my Goodreads page was writer's block, and I just don't see it as a block. I see it as it's kind of like, a giraffe has a valve in its neck, because when it bends down to drink the water, it would have an aneurysm from all the blood flowing into its head. So there is a valve in its head that when its head is down below its feet for so many seconds, that valve just automatically shuts off so that it doesn't die of a brain aneurysm. And I think writing and writer's block is the same way. That block is there for a reason. It's telling, I think it's subliminally your way of saying, get up, step away, let your brain do what it does, because now you're in writing mode, but you have nowhere to go. So now you're running in circles with the writing. And that's what I found myself getting into. So rather than feeling guilty for stepping away and not doing any writing for, a day, a week, 2 weeks, rather than letting the guilt overtake me, I let my brain do the thinking, and I'm coming up with my different scenarios. And I may scribble some notes on a piece of paper and just set it aside until I'm ready to sit back down. But boy, when I'm ready to sit back down, everything that I haven't lost anything in time-wise for my writing, because it flows, and it comes fast, too. And I type fast. I'm like over 90 words a minute. So when it comes out, it comes out very fast. Yes.
That's very cool. So, now, we want to talk, obviously, of course, about the different works that you've done. The first question that I wanted to ask you, and just so you folks know, we have, obviously, Into the Wilderness, which is a trilogy. We have Claire's Bible, and, of course, the Stalk Exchange, which we've been talking about along with the blog. So My first question to you is, which project took the longest, and then which took the shortest, and what do you attest for that? Meaning, was it just a matter of it was more familial to you? Explain the factors involved with that.
On the average, and I thought I would write one book a year. That was my goal. I averaged 2 a year. And the one that took me the longest was the second book in the trilogy, because I hadn't planned on writing a trilogy when I finished the first book. When I finished, the end of the first book could have been a nice close for the book. Okay, bye-bye, all ends. But it was open-ended enough, and it kind of made me, I think when I finished that, I started thinking about all these other characters that I didn't give them any, like, final. It was like the two main characters. Yes, there was finality and no cliffhanger, but it was open-ended. So there were all these other characters that I kind of fell in love with, and actually I really did. And I'm like, well, I've got to do something with them. I can't just leave them lingering like this. So, but it went a long time. I think it was, I got through the prologue and the first chapter of the second book of the trilogy, and I walked away from it. I think it was about 6 months. I was just I was just not ready to write it, but boy, it was really nagging at me, and started to think about my other characters, and eventually I gave them a path to take, and it 6 months later I sat down and picked up where I left off, and it flowed. It flowed really quick from there, but that, I think the 6 month mark was the longest I'd stepped away. But I finished it quickly. And the other books, like I said, with both the blog and Clara's Bible, 2 completely different books to start with. And I just literally scrapped the whole thing. I was about halfway through, maybe not quite halfway through them, but I didn't like where they were going. So I set those aside. But I actually started Clara's Bible before the blog, and I put Clara's Bible off to the side. And then I went back to the blog. And that kind of helps me, again, when it gets to that, quote, writer's block syndrome. I bounce. I bounce from, if I'm at a dead still and I still feel like I want to write, I'll jump to another story I was working on. So I've always got 3 or 4 things in the works.
Of course.
Yeah, but stepping away, again, that 6 month period, but that was really, I think that was my test. Are you really passionate about writing, or did you just want to write a book for vanity? And that was my test, because it wasn't about writing so that anybody, celebrity or not, I don't care. I just have a passion to do it, and that's something I'm going to continue to do. And that second book, completing the trilogy eventually, it was just it's a compulsion now. I have to do it, and it's entertainment for me. It's my mental television, really.
That is so cool. I absolutely love that. I'm like, okay. Now, in talking about each one of these different books, if somebody is listening in, go through each one of them and say, okay, if you're a person who enjoys this, you'll want to read Clara's Bible, etc. So that this way they get a nice enough feel for who you feel your audience is for each book.
Okay. Well, for the trilogy, of course, that is a story about, I won't say angels, and it's 2 characters who there's, if you like exorcisms, if you like a little bit of technology, if you like a little bit of sci-fi, a little bit of voodoo, this is the story. It's basically God versus the devil, and there's 2 characters. It all started with a kind of an untapped story in the book of Revelation, the Bible, that in Revelation there is that one phrase about the woman in the wilderness and how she was, that's what prompted me to create. So the devil is chasing the woman in the wilderness, and that's really what spawns the whole book. But we've got different characters. It's kind of creepy. It's not absurdly creepy, but it is. We've got exorcisms. We've got demons stuck in computers. We've got Samantha the Savant, who is like the exorcist, and we've got the 3 wise men who, and I like, very diverse book. I try to incorporate as you know, as much diversity in my book. So I want different cultures and different people in my books. I don't want them all to be cookie cutter. So if you like kind of that, yeah, it's so the trilogy is basically a combination of a couple of things. It's kind of a love story, and it's kind of creepy. We've got different characters. You don't know who's who. We've got demons switching from one body to the next and stuck in computers. So if you like that kind of thing, you'll love the trilogy. Let's see. The second book. That was a mouthful. Second book. Let's see. What did I publish? The blog next. The blog. If you like kind of a suspense thriller, this is a first-person narrative from just a greedy little woman who wants to be a newspaper reporter, and she'll do whatever it takes to get there. And there's some good twists in the book, but it's a suspense thriller. We've got a serial killer. It was originally going to be called Dante's Blog, and
really,
when I always Google before I publish anything or before I even copyright it. I make sure that I Google my character names, my subject, my titles. I don't want to accidentally bump heads with anybody. So there was a young kid that has a blog called Dante's Blog. So I thought, rather than doing that, I'm just going to call it The Blog. But it's a good suspense thriller. Clara's Bible's that one's heartfelt to me because that kind of incorporates some of the things my dad taught me in life about working on cars. And that one it's a little bit of more of a historical tale. And it deals with some of the adversity with biracial children in the 70s. And it's a story about a young girl. Her mother is white, her father is black, and she's in the middle. And they're moving to California. The father's there, and she gets abducted. And she has to manage to find her way through this crazy world she's been abducted into and somehow get home. And it introduces great characters. There's a good twist. It's not a story about abduction. It's a story about using your brains and your wits to somehow survive a situation. And making new friends and not knowing who to trust. It's just a great story. To me, that's one of my favorites because I did incorporate some knowledge that my dad had passed on to me, and that inevitably is what helped her stay safe in this little situation. So I'm not going to go into too much detail.
I was just going to say probably not too much. Yes.
The Stalk Exchange it's another suspense thriller. This one I really took a chance on because I went with 4 different perspectives, actually 5, I think. But it's basically a story that begins with one character and her experience up to a certain point, but then I go into the other characters, and they're all first person. So you're getting to see the story unfold through each character's eyes. And it was a real chance because going into multi-perspectives, I don't know, some people frown on it, some people love it. So I just do what I do, and that's what feels good, as far as what I'm writing. But it's a good suspense thriller, and you kind of don't know. That's the one I changed the ending on. I had it all done, and I came up with a new ending for it, so I had to go back and reconstruct the whole thing. So the blog and the Stalk Exchange, good suspense thrillers, and Clara's Bible is just a good hearty story, and it's I think that Diana will attest to it. She just is teary-eyed over that one.
I love it. That's my ultimate favorite.
Well, and
so kind of
what I found interesting.
Different.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, that's fine. Go ahead. What were you going to say?
Oh, yeah. So sometimes I jump into a different type of genre for a book, but I don't want to feel like trapped in one genre, so I won't always do a suspense thriller.
Right.
I can't limit myself. Someday, one day I may feel like writing something completely different, but to me it's all part of the art and the passion, not about the sales.
I agree 150%, definitely. We also do not want to forget to mention the obvious, which is, it's obvious to me anyways, that you had indicated that you're going to be working on a children's haunted house story that's going to be illustrated by some of your family, which is way cool. Oh, my God, you have to talk about that, or at least what you can talk about.
Well, it's really funny because I wrote this haunted house story back, I think I was 17 or 18 at the time, and my mom was cleaning out some boxes, and she found the manuscript. And it was so funny because I was rereading it, and I'm like, oh my God, I forgot about that. I can't believe I wrote that. And it's a cute little story. And so what we decided is my mom is a fantastic artist, and so is my niece. So we were looking at doing a children's book and publishing that, self-publish that. And so it was really exciting, though, to find something from so long ago. Just it was a reminder that the passion was always there.
That's so sweet. Oh, my God, how cool. And when any approximate ideas to when we could look for something like that?
Not any. I don't think anytime soon. I mean, I'm looking at maybe a year. I am in the heat and passion of another novel that I'm working on, which is more of a family adventure, and it's again veering from my genre or a genre, but it's going to be a fun family adventure, and it's really inspired by my niece who said, "Aunt Denise, can you please write something that I'm allowed to read?" Because she's 11 years old.
Aww.
So I conceived this idea of a story, and again, I don't talk too much about anything before it's copywritten, but it'll be a fun family adventure, a little bit of everything. It's going to include, may even have some pirates. It'll be cute though, and it's going to be a very fun story. So that is I am probably only about a third into it. So I'm trying really hard to make sure that we have something out. And ready to publish. I'm hoping by the end of the year. So
cool.
But
really?
sometimes it happens sooner. It happens sooner. I'm still in the throes. I've got my maps up. Yes. It's a fun story.
Oh, now I'm really getting excited. Oh, this is exciting. Okay, we have a couple quick things that we have to go over before our show is actually complete. Doesn't this go fast? I say this to people all the time. I'm like,
it does.
Oh, my God, we've been on this thing for like almost 90 minutes. But when you have a comfort level established, I think that just makes it a lot easier. Do you know what I mean? Like when you feel comfortable when you're speaking to somebody, it just definitely increases it threefold. So that's awesome. I'm going to read a bunch of these things off, and then you just let me know if I missed anything in terms of people that want to contact you. Just so you folks know. Oh, and yes, I had to find out your real name from your sister. Ouch. You know you've never told me your real name ever? Ever.
Oh, Denise. I don't write under a pseudonym to hide. I write under this pseudonym because it's just to me I took 2 letters off my last name for my pseudonym, and that was kind of in honor of my father because that's his monogram.
Oh, nice. See, I didn't know that. Thank you for telling me that.
Yeah,
you told me that yesterday.
I was trying to think of it.
That's okay. You did well. I have to say, not only that, it's impressive because I have this C.M. Smith name that I use, and I was like, seriously, I don't even think people care about what name I use as long as I do something. So that's awesome. So, folks, you've been listening to Denise today, but she goes by, which is the 2 initials, D.M. and Denovi, which is spelled Denovi. She has a regular personal Facebook page as well as her author page, which is, of course, the name DM Denovi. The website itself, again, DM, and it's spelled DENOVI.com. She is on Google+, Goodreads, LinkedIn, Amazon, YouTube, Pinterest. Now, I don't know if you want me to mention, I know you have a Twitter handle, but I see that that's not as active, so do you usually solicit people to go there, or...
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
I'm guilty of hashtag games. That's my deep dark secret. Is I love hashtag games. But yeah, DM Denovi is also my Twitter handle. Please,
Right. I was just going to say. Now you're not on Instagram because I didn't find anywhere.
I do have an Instagram account, but I just
you do?
I am. I do, but I don't use it very often. I just. Social networking is really time-consuming. So, but
I know.
I do have a handle.
Okay, gotcha. Well, I wasn't quite sure, and that's why sometimes I hesitate a little bit to mention something like that, because if you're not active on it or if you're not putting anything out there, that makes it a little harder, because then people go there and they're expecting an update and there's nothing there. So I kind of, Now, is there any other place where people can find you or your work or anything that I might have missed?
I try to incorporate usually between Facebook and Amazon, and Twitter is really where I do most of my social updates. Any book freebies I always put on both Facebook and Twitter and Goodreads. So Twitter is usually my main guy right now. So any freebies I will always make sure that I get them out on Facebook. I give you a couple days notice before they're free to download, and Twitter and Facebook, big ones.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure of that because we don't want to forget anything there as far as that goes. So cool. Okay. So we don't want to forget to mention one more time the 3 different things, or I should say I'll just list them all off. Her various works include Into the Wilderness Trilogy, Claire's Bible, the Stalk Exchange, as well as the blog, of course. And I mentioned to you I will give you my hindsights on that after the show. Well, when I'm actually home, which I won't be, but I will let you know as far as that goes. Now, there's a couple quick things at the very end of the show I always do. First of all, I get to tell you what I think of you. And the reason I do that is because it's the only part of the show that's not scripted. That means, I'm not bullshitting. That means it's actually from my heart, and not necessarily my head or a combination of both. But before I forget, I want to mention a couple things. Obviously, if you're not familiar, maybe you do know or don't know, but it takes about 2 hours or so, and the episode will be archived. I'll send you an actual copy of the link, only because, for one, I'm moving formats, and I've been informed that Blog Talk Radio won't let me take my shows with me. So I'm going to send you a copy so this way I know you have it, which would be important. And then second of all, obviously, you can use it for promotion or whatever. So that's the first thing. The second thing is I want to address your sister, Di. So I'll just have you be quiet for a minute. So I'm going to speak from me to you, Di, which I think I've told her to her face. But since I can do this publicly, of course, I'm going to take an opportunity to make her cry or blush. So from me to you, Di, I've told you already what I think of you, but this particular little blurb here has to do with, without you, I would not know your sister. I would not have met her. I wouldn't have known her work or read it. I wouldn't have felt the power of her words or the passion of her purpose. So first of all, thank you for introducing us. Secondly, thank you. Thank you for loving me flawed and ridiculous and as I am, and thank you for carting me around Vegas, and thank you for listening to me when I cry, and thank you for talking me out of stupid shit. Just thank you, and thank you for being on the show today and adding to all of this. I miss you very much, and I love you very much, and I hope you know that. So that's to you. To her. Yeah, I know. It's one of those things. Okay, so now you, young lady, Denise, we'll get to you now. So these are my feelings. Yeah, you better be sitting down because I never know how people are going to react to this. But I usually do this, like I said, because the audience gets an opportunity to get to know who you are and what you do. So these are my impressions of you, Denise. First of all, my sincerest apologies because I think you and I have been going round and round with our schedules to try to accommodate doing an interview. So first of all, my apologies to you that it took this long to be able to do this. I'm glad that we got an opportunity to do so. One of the coolest things about starting to research you was that I began to realize that we are kindred in many different ways. First of all, our very first impression or impulse to want to be a writer started off very young. Second of all, most of our success in our lives has come much later in life. That's a testament to any individual who is full of wit, wisdom, wealth, and wise in the ways of the world and not only in the ways of creating magic. You have all 4 of those components, and you've used them all to your advantage, which I find amazingly incredible and amazingly respectful in terms of what you were able to create from just your mind and your heart. One of the other cool things that I found out about you was you used to use a typewriter like I do. Well, jigs up on you because I still use a typewriter. In fact, I literally handwrite everything that I do. I still do to this day. I still attest to that because the computer can crash, just throwing that out there. You are completely beautiful. I've looked at about 1 million pictures of you, and I can attest that each and every one of them shows you to be better looking and more brilliant and more radiant. And that radiance has to come from a true knowing of self and a true knowing of yourself in terms of yourself and your relationships with others. What I find most remarkable about you is the fact that you can make another person feel like they're your family, like they're your friend, like they're capable of creating and performing magic every day of the week. And for you, I thank you for that because that means that you can inspire me and educate me and motivate me. And again, thank you so much for that. I'm so hoping that I can get to Las Vegas in the next 2 months because I will track you down and make you drink wine with me and then make you try to write out in public place. That's one of my goals. I'm just going to throw that out there to the public audience. And again, I hope that I've done you justice. I hope that you've enjoyed the show today, and I do hope that the next time you do a book, you'll come back again. Please, because we like return visits. Please, please.
Absolutely. You've got me blushing. Thank you so much, Sin. And I've had a fantastic time. It's thank you for focusing on the life of a writer and giving attention to it. Indie writers, all of us out there, I applaud everybody who
no kidding,
writes and follows through with it. So yes, absolutely. And all artists, independent songwriters, independent musicians, we all know what it takes to maintain not just the level of work it takes to do what we love doing, but the heartbreak that goes along with it, the disappointment, the fear,
rejection.
That makes us so much stronger to just be able to pick up and say, all right, boom, brush ourselves off and keep moving on. So,
amen.
Bravo to all of the indies out there. Love you guys.
Oh, yes, and more power to you, of course, definitely. So thank you, guys. I'm officially going to sign off here, do my last little bit, and then I'm going to go shower, and then I'm going to go ignore everyone. But I can't thank you both enough, and much love to both of you, and I can't wait to see you both very soon.
Love you too, sweetheart, and thank you.
All right, guys, have a great day. I'll talk to you both soon.
Okay, bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye.
I love you, Sam.
I love you, too. Tell me they aren't fabulous, right? You could, go on tour and do this together. One more time to remind everybody, it's DM Denovi, spelled Denovi. The website is dmdenovi.com. She is on Goodreads, Amazon, Pinterest, YouTube, LinkedIn, Google+. She has a personal Facebook page as well as her author page. And I forgot to mention, on Facebook you can find some of her work, meaning the blog, and, of course, the Stalk Exchange novel, both on Facebook. Go ahead and check those out along with her. My deep thanks one more time to both of you gals. Thank you so much. Reminder to everybody, 12 o'clock Central Standard Time tomorrow, which is Neela Martin, as well as, obviously, the daughter of Ray Charles. Oh, my God, I'm so excited. I almost forgot to mention this because I want to throw this up there so that you guys all know this. I'll probably post it sometime later today or, I'm guessing probably early tomorrow morning because who am I trying to kid? I'm going to be out in 30 seconds here. Robin Charles is her name, and actually if you go ahead and Facebook, she's got a profile both for personal page as well as her actual musical page. It's Robin, and it's LaJoya, Lajoya, and it's Charles, obviously just like her father's name, Ray Charles. Thanks so much to my listening audience. Thanks so much to everybody that participated. I look forward to my show tomorrow. Look for my write-up tonight or tomorrow on the show page and my personal page. And if you're at the fair, text me or message me, and we'll meet up. And we'll talk to you tomorrow. Take care.
Ready? Okay. We got paper, yes we do. White roll notebooks, pencils, glue. We got crayons every hue. School supplies for your whole crew. Target's got everything you need to ready, set, go back to school.